especially right now with all the stress and tension and conflict in the world, it's so important for people to know how to let go, to know how to deal with what's going on inside.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Helping with Dr. Richard Shuster. Food for the brain, knowledge from the experts, tools to win at life. I'm your host, Dr. Richard. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, and whatever you do, this is the show that is going to help you become the best version of yourself. Each episode, you will hear from some of the most amazing, talented, and successful people on the planet who followed their passions and strive to help others. Join our movement to get 1 million people each day to commit acts of kindness for others. Together, we're going to make the world a better place. Are you ready? Because it's time for your Daily Helping. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Daily Helping Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Richard, and we have a legendary guest to share with you today. He is none other than Hale Dwoskin. He is a New York Times best-selling author, and he wrote The Sedona Method. He's also featured in the movie Letting Go and is one of the featured teachers in the book and movie phenomenon The Secret, as well as the forthcoming Greatest Secret. For over 4 decades, he has dedicated his life to helping people eliminate their suffering and discover the truth of who they truly are. He is also the co-author with Lester Levinson of Happiness is Free, and It's Easier Than You Think, books 1 through 5. Hale, I am so excited about our talk today. Welcome to the Daily Helping. It is an honor to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
We're going to have a great time. And I do want to dive into the Sedona Method, of course, but I really like to find out people's journeys. How did you get put on the path that you're on that ultimately led to the creation of the Sedona Method and helping so many people worldwide?
Well, actually, I was a precocious teenager. I was really interested in discovering truth. And I read some spiritual books. I started pursuing it. And very early on, I met Lester Levinson, the man who inspired this work, at a seminar that I organized for someone else. When I did anything, I jumped in. I didn't just... I wasn't just a participant. I wanted to be a facilitator. Years ago, I did the S training, and then I became a guest seminar leader, and then what they call as a assistant training supervisor. And I was on track to become a trainer eventually. Then I realized that was a dead end for me, and then I started getting into something called Theta seminars, and I was organizing seminars for them, and Lester came as a guest. And I didn't notice him in the seminar, but we went out to lunch, Lester and I and the seminar leader, and I think the other organizer. And as I sat there across the table from him, I recognized that he was very different than anyone I had met before in the self-help community or on the spiritual path. He was obviously no longer seeking. He was just this living embodiment of peace and happiness, and just it was a very profound experience. And so, and he shared an interesting story. Back in 1952, he was sent home to die from a second coronary. But rather than give up, he decided to go back to the lab within himself. And he was already very successful. He was actually living on Central Park South, overlooking Central Park in Manhattan, in a penthouse apartment. And he had all the trappings of success, except he was a physical and emotional basket case. And he was not only miserable, but his body was dying. And it was a wake-up call. And he started a process of self-inquiry and discovered that you can let go of all the craziness that we keep inside of ourselves. And as he did that, he felt better and better. His body corrected, and he entered a state of profound, unshakable peace that he lived in another 42 years after the doctor gave him that death sentence.
And tell me again the year of the death sentence.
1952.
Okay, that's what I thought you said. So, and that's interesting because we know now through science that there's a very strong connection to one's physical well-being and one's emotional health. But I suspect that in the 50s, that was crazy talk, right?
Oh, well, he had no idea. He had no idea. And he wasn't trying to heal his body. He thought he was on his way out. He wanted at least some answers. And he said, we teach this course about letting go or releasing. And I have no idea what he was talking about, because this was, when I met him, it was 1976. And very few people, except maybe the 12-step community and pillow beaters. I don't know if you remember Primal Scream. And that part didn't sound good to me at all. Fortunately, it had nothing to do with that. And the 12-step, I didn't have an addiction problem. So I knew that they talked about letting go, but I knew nothing about it. And so I just decided to do the seminar. Now, he didn't even lead it. He didn't want to be in front of the room. He never really wanted that. He was not interested. But he trained other people to do it. And one of his teachers led a seminar. And before the seminar was even over, the changes that were happening inside of me was so profound that I had this realization that I was going to dedicate my life to this. That was 1976. And I've never wavered. It's over 4 decades now.
It's a great story. And we're going to certainly talk about how this transitions into the Sedona method. But what were some of those profound experiences that you went through?
Well, the first thing is my mind just stopped. And there was this profound peace. And then when thinking started again, it was clearer, calmer, more focused, and much more positive. And since then, my mind has gotten quieter and quieter. So it's usually quiet. And when there are thoughts, they're positive thoughts without effort, zero effort at it. And my whole life has transformed on every level. I have an amazing relationship with a wonderful woman, and it's an incredibly loving, mutually supportive relationship. I'm quite wealthy. The body is healthy, but the best part is I've watched over the 4 decades of doing this, hundreds of thousands of people transform in amazing ways. People who were suicidal, no longer suicidal. People who were having panic attacks, no longer have them. People who could never succeed, almost miraculously, they're now succeeding. People's relationships are healing. I mean, it's every part of people's lives transform when you let go. And that inspires me every day, because especially right now with all the stress and tension and conflict in the world, it's so important for people to know how to let go, to know how to deal with what's going on inside. A lot of our props have been knocked out. Many of us can't even go to work. You and I are fortunate we can work from home, but there are a lot of people who aren't that fortunate. And the stress of that, the tension of that is extreme. Yet, when you learn how to tap your natural ability to let go, you discover it doesn't need to be that way. And you handle life from a totally different perspective. And it's wonderful.
I love this. And so now we're putting the pieces together, and we're going to flash back to the mid-70s. You've had this miraculous kind of transformation via Levinson's conference. And so now, how does all of that morph into the Sedona method?
Well, actually, the process itself, I didn't invent. What happened is, before Lester died in the 90s, early 90s, he saw something in me that I didn't even see because I wasn't looking for this. he knew that I was going to take on his mantle and continue this work. So he gave me all his copyrights. And while Lester was alive, we had already changed the name to the Sedona method. But what I did in the, when was this? Early 2000s is I put it into a book. Before that, we only did seminars and videos and audios and things like that. And I concretized it into a book in the early 2000s. But what happened is I was very young when I learned the Sedona method. I was only 22 years old. And so I got really into it. And then Lester said, you need to go out and live your life for a while before you get into facilitating and all the things that I wanted to do. And so what I did is I used it in my own life to be successful at my own business. And then I used it to be successful at selling real estate. And I used it to help my friends and relatives. And then in the early 80s, I started leading seminars and teaching this process to groups of people. And then in the early 90s, Lester passed his copyrights to me and said, you take over, basically. And then he died a few years later. So that's kind of how it all evolved.
Okay. And so, meant to be, the mantle's passed to you,
right?
And you've now kind of taken it into a different medium. So I want to get a little bit into basics. So somebody's listening to this and they're saying, well, this all sounds really cool, but maybe they're a little bit skeptical.
Oh, they should be.
take us through. Let's start with the tenets of the Sedona method. So take us through, from cradle to grave.
It's just very simple. Your feelings and your thoughts are just that. They're just feelings and thoughts. They're not you, and they're not the truth, and you can let them go. Most of us live as though we are our feelings. It's even in our language. We don't usually say, I feel sad. We say, I'm sad. We don't usually say, I feel angry. We say, I'm angry. We actually feel like we are our emotions. And the same thing is true with our thoughts. We think a particular way, and we think, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm whatever the way you're thinking, you think you are that. But those are just thoughts. They're not you. And when you start letting go of these thoughts and feelings, you discover there's a you that's much bigger than a thought or a feeling or a belief or an idea. There's this living presence of awareness that's at the heart of every experience. And that is what you truly are. And that is what makes everything fun. And that's also what makes everything possible. Without that awareness that you are, there wouldn't be any life experience. It's what lives through the body. It's what keeps everything going. And so the basic tenet of the Sedona method is you are unlimited. You only are limited by the thoughts and feelings and beliefs that you hold in mind or you've identified with. And as you let them go, you discover that limits drop away, problems drop away, beliefs about yourself that were holding you back drop away. And what you're left with is happiness, peace, joy, and a feeling of being capable of handling whatever life throws at you. I've experienced being, for instance, in a car skidding out of the control, heading for a steep incline. And instead of panicking, I let go and was able to correct my course and not totally lose control of the whole situation. And I've also experienced being in other situations that were quite dangerous, but with a feeling of absolute peace and certainty. And right now, because of all the stress that most people are feeling, if you think about it, most of us, when we're in a situation that we don't like, or that's not going the way we want, we kind of panic a little bit, or we contract inside. And all that does is makes it harder to deal with it effectively. But when you can let go and you can just come from a calm center inside, then it's much easier to master life's challenges. And at the same time, if you have a goal or an intent or something you're wanting to achieve, the thing that stops you is you. What you're holding in mind and what you're feeling inside that's contrary to whatever the goal is the only real obstacle. And when you know how to dissolve that, literally miracles happen.
I'm loving this so much, but I'm also wondering if you could share some of the techniques that are utilized by the Sedona method to get to letting go. Because I think if people hear this, we're now 20 minutes into this, and I imagine people are nodding their heads and yeah, this sounds really good. How do you do it? How do you get to the point where you can let go and your car can get out of control and you're like, it's all good?
Yeah. But, and again, I mean, you'll still have reactions. It's not, you don't become an automaton. It's right. The exact opposite, though. What you discover as you let go is that you were operating on automatic most of the time. Because have you ever said to yourself, I'm never going to do that again, and then done it?
We all have.
Yeah. Or have you ever said, I'm definitely going to do that next, and you totally forget. Because we're running on automatic most of the time, because our thoughts and feelings are pointing us in directions that aren't in alignment with what's in our highest and best good. So when you can let that go, then you live life in alignment, on purpose, with focus and clarity in a way that isn't possible unless you know how to do that. So I need a pen. Here we go. Do you have a pen there you can pick up?
Do.
Cool. So for the sake of this analogy, this pen represents a thought or a feeling or a belief or an idea that's holding you back in some way. And everyone at home, you can do this with us if you'd like, or just imagine it. And your hand represents your gut or your awareness. Now grip the object really tightly with your hand. Now, if you did this long enough, it would feel really familiar and also really uncomfortable. That's because this is what we're doing with our feelings and thoughts all the time. Now, that's enough gripping. Open your hand and roll the object around in your hand. Now, is this object attached to your hand? Obviously not. So what you can do is actually decide to let it go. So now turn your hand upside down and just drop the pen. Now, I know that's really simplistic, but it's actually, as you work with this, it becomes that simple, that direct. So let's do it. This first process, if we have time, we can do more than one. But this first process is one of the basic core processes that we do. It's a starting place. That's why I'm starting with it. There are many things that we build on from here, but it's something that just hearing about once you can start doing on your own. So I want to share that. So even if your listeners and viewers never ever do anything with the Sedona method, they'll be able to use this process to start transforming their lives. And we used to share this process on a video. Actually, it was a Jack Canfield video where I came as a guest to one of his Breakthroughs to Success seminars. I was a frequent guest at those seminars for a while, guest speaker. And all I did is this first process. And there was someone, two things. One, at the seminar itself, there was a woman who had severe MS. And after doing this process, she came up to the stage and danced with me. And we used to send out the video with Jack's permission to people interested in this program. And it just had this one technique. And the people would send us testimonials just from the introductory video. But I have a caution here. This is very simple. So your mind may rebel. The mind thinks it needs to be difficult to let go. Otherwise, it figures it would know how to do it and would already be doing it. So, I'm going to ask these simple questions. The first question is just simply, what are you feeling? And then the next question is, could you just allow or welcome the feeling? And then the next question is, could you let it go? Just could you? And if you're able to drop that pen or pencil, or you can imagine doing it, then I know you can. The next question is, would you? And would you just means, are you willing to? And if you're ever on your own, if you ever have some doubt, you can ask yourself, would I rather let this go, or would I rather have my go, or rather hold on to this feeling? Would I rather be free, or would I rather suffer? You can just ask yourself, and it's easy to make the choice. And the last question is just when. And when is an invitation to decide to do it now. And as I take us through this process, know that you might let go on the could you, the would you, or the when. You might even start to let go just on allowing or welcoming the feeling. And so let's do it. So allow yourself to, and by the way, Dr. Richard, you don't need to respond. I'm going to do this with the whole audience. I don't want to put you on the spot. So allow yourself to think of something in your life that you'd like to change or improve. Maybe you want more money. Maybe you want better relationships. Maybe you want to solve a health situation, or maybe you just want to feel less stress or tension or anxiety. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And allow yourself to focus on that particular issue. And then in this moment, could you just notice how it feels? And could you just, as best you can, allow or welcome that feeling? Just let it be here. And then as best you can, just for now, could you let it go? Just could you? Would you? When? So that's just one round. So let's do a couple more. But you'll notice that each time we go through this, it gets a little easier. You feel it more. And you'll find that it gets easier and easier the more you practice it. Even though it's incredibly simple, it really works. So again, in this moment, could you just notice how you feel when you think about that issue? You may already feel lighter. And then in this moment, could you just simply allow or welcome the feeling? And then as best you can, just for now, could you let it go? Just could you? Would you? When? See, the release comes faster each time you do it if you stay open. And then let's run through it one more time for good luck. So again, allow yourself to focus on that same issue or any other issue where you're wanting to change or improve something. And then could you just notice how you feel and allow it or welcome it or be present with it as best you can. And then as best you can, just for now, could you let it go? Just could you? Would you? When? So those questions are really easy to remember. And if you play with them, if you explore them, you'll be doing the very basic part of the Sedona method. We build on that as a foundation.
So exciting. So exciting. And I wish we had time to go all the way through the Sedona method. We'll have links to it, of course, in the show notes. But I certainly want to take some time to talk about happiness and free. And again, thank you for walking us through that exercise. That was really wonderful. But I certainly want to talk about happiness is free because we all need a little bit more happiness right now.
Sure. So, Happiness is Free is a book that we're actually re-releasing as back in 2001. I wrote a 5-book series based around the teachings of Lester Levinson, my mentor. It was a lot of quotes and conversations with him, and then commentary at the end from me. And recently, Rhonda Byrne contacted us, totally out of the blue. I had no idea this was coming. But a few months ago, Rhonda Byrne, the author of The Secret, contacted me and said she's coming out with a new book and that Lester and I are going to be quoted in it. And I went, okay, that sounds good. And I discovered that she was quoting this 5-book series extensively in the book. And then it seemed cumbersome to have it in 5 books. So I hadn't really thought much about those books in a long time. So what I did is I put them all together in one book and then added a lot more about the basics and the advanced program of the Sedona method so that people could get the best of both Lester's teachings and some of the best of the Sedona method teachings in one book. And Rhonda, when she knew I was doing this, she even volunteered to write the foreword to the book because these books were the only book she had on her nightstand was these books. And so she volunteered to write the foreword to the book. And so Happiness is Free, and it's easier than you think. It takes you through various processes and gives you certain perspectives that help you to recognize that the happiness that you've been seeking outside of yourself is already within you, and you can access it anytime you want, quickly, easily, and joyously. No matter what's going on around you, you can bring happiness to relationships as opposed to trying to get it from them. You can bring happiness to your job isn't trying to get your happiness from your job. You can even still be happy when your body is struggling. And when you bring happiness to life instead of trying to get it from life, what happens is it transforms your life, because then you start being way ahead in every situation, because you're not looking for your partner to bring you happiness. You're bringing happiness to the relationship, and the relationship flowers. You're not waiting until the job turns out a particular way or you succeed at a business. If you're already happy, you're more likely to succeed. You're more likely to be effective at your job. And disease is a function of unhappiness to some degree. Again, we don't treat, diagnose, or cure, or even advise about physical or emotional illness. I'm not a doctor. I can't, I have to be careful about that kind of stuff. But when we first started doing this, there was no real body of knowledge about this. But there's now a huge body of knowledge that if you're happy inside, it really boosts your immune system. So Happiness is Free is a book that can really transform your life because you're getting the keys to happiness.
Wonderful. And very quickly, because we're short on time, but I know The Greatest Secret is soon to be released. Give us a quick tease into what that book's going to cover.
Okay. I can't say that much. I agreed. All the teachers in that book have agreed not to reveal the book.
Well, let's not reveal.
Here's what I can say okay. Is that it will help you where the secrets stopped is where The Greatest Secret picks up. It's not an invalidation of anything in The Secret. What it does is it shows you how to get yourself out of the way so you can start manifesting all those things you've been trying to manifest holding in mind the positive. And it goes way beyond that. It shows you how to end suffering within yourself, how to just be that which you truly are. And honestly, a lot of the book is based on what we teach. So it's pretty exciting to us that this is coming out.
Now, this sounds really exciting. I know that it's under wraps for a bit, so I appreciate you giving us even that tease. But we're excited about that coming out. I know a lot of people listen to this show are big fans of The Secret. So
well, they should be. It's a wonderful book. And it's coming out soon. It's coming out on the 24th of November. So you don't have a long wait. You might as well, I would recommend you pre-order it now.
And we'll put a link up in the show notes to that. Well, man, Hale, this has been phenomenal and our time flew by. And I'm so grateful we had a chance for you to share your wisdom and exercises with the audience. As you know, I wrap up every episode of my show by asking my guests this one single question. What is your biggest helping, that one most important piece of information you'd like somebody to walk away with after hearing our conversation today?
Sure. So it's very simple. You are already whole, complete, and perfect as you are, not in all the struggles, but at your core. And that can become your living experience. If you just are open to letting go of all the things that you're not and letting yourself discover that truth within yourself, that you absolutely have no limits except the ones that you cling to. And I'm saying that from my own direct experience and watching hundreds of thousands of other people discover the same thing. So I know you can discover this too.
Beautifully said. Thank you for sharing that. And leave us with a couple of links where people can get some more information.
Oh, sure. Well, the easiest one is Sedona.com, just like the city in Sedona, Arizona. And you can also go, the book is available on Amazon and on YouTube. The Sedona Method channel on YouTube has a free copy of an hour and 8-minute movie called Letting Go, where it also teaches you a totally different technique from the Sedona Method. And it's really a fun movie to watch. So you can get more free material. In fact, there are 200 plus videos that teach different parts of the Sedona Method on the Sedona Method YouTube channel.
Fantastic. And for all of you on the bike, we got you covered. Everything that we've talked about today, books, links, videos, it's all going to be in the show notes at thedailyhelping.com for this particular episode. Well, Hale, I have so enjoyed this. Thank you so much for coming on The Daily Helping and sharing your wisdom with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And I also want to thank each and every one of you who chose to tune into this. If you like what you heard, go subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review, because that's what helps other people find the show. But most importantly, go out there today and do something nice for somebody else, even if you don't know who they are, and post in your social media feeds using the hashtag #MyDailyHelping, because the happiest people are those that help others.